Hey guys, welcome back to the Game of Life. Today we'll be recording episode 3. So welcome back to playing Game of Life, episode 3. Let me pull up the game. Hey guys, welcome back to the Game of Life, episode 3. Let me pull up the game. Here's the game. Hold on, let me fix that. My webcam is in the way. We did the ocean, the wide awake, go to the beach and ride surfboards one, so today we'll be doing Game of Life. Today we'll be doing hold on, let me find out. I see the episode, but let me see. Today we'll be playing episode Growing of season 2, episode Growing. Season 2, episode Growing. So let's get into this.
Early one afternoon you found yourself in the living room with your family. It was another one of those summer days where it felt too hot to go outside, but the air conditioner was cranked up as far as you could negotiate it, but you, your moms, and sister were lounging around while the TV blared on in the backdrop, ignored by all of you. You, specifically, were draped over the coffee table, perched on the arm of the couch, sitting cross-legged on the floor, lying spread eagle on the carpet, perched up, sitting cross, perched, You looked out the window. Elizabeth, ugh. I feel terrible. Mom looked up from the magazine she'd barely been. Mom, could you have strained them somehow? Elizabeth flailed briefly, then, Elizabeth, I don't know. It just hurts. Ma, oh, sweetheart. Ma got up from her seat at the kitchen table and walked over to your sister. She did. Ma, I'm sorry you have to deal with that. Maybe it's growing pains. You could be taller by next fall. Elizabeth scoffed. She didn't look impressed by Ma's assessment. Elizabeth, I'd rather be my height forever than deal with this. Mom walked over too, leaning against the back of the couch. Mom, kids, they grow up so fast. Mom, soon Elizabeth will have a home of her own, maybe even with a nice husband and some kids. If she sniffled loudly and wiped at her eye, but you tilted your head. She only seemed invested in hanging out with her group of friends, not chasing after boys. Ma must agree with you, because she shook her head.
No.
Ma, let's not exaggerate. She's still practically a child. Ma, but, if you ever do pursue romance, Elizabeth, you can come talk to me about it. Mom, definitely. We're always willing to lend an ear. Elizabeth's feature. Elizabeth, no way. I am not talking to my moms about that. Mom's jaw dropped, and she gasped in an exaggerated display of shock. Ma only grinned. Ma, it really wouldn't be so bad to come to us. I know what it's like to have a crush on a pretty boy or two. Mom, I don't, but I can listen anyway. Mom snorted at her. Elizabeth certainly wasn't feeling the amusement, because, Elizabeth, I'm going back to my room. I'd rather melt alone, thanks. She strode off. Mom, whoops. Looks like we scared her off with all that romance talk. Ma, oh well. We'll get her next time. You watched them titter with some surprise. Obviously, your moms liked women. But you had no idea that Ma liked guys too. Obvious, Devin, wait. You've had crushes on guys? Ma turned to you. Ma, always. I like both. Ma, but I like your mom most out of everyone. Ma's smile turned all soft in the corners, like it usually did when she looked at her. She pinched Mom's cheek lightly. Mom reached up to cup a hand over Ma's. Even when Ma stopped pulling her cheek, their hands remained clasped together. Mom, thanks, Lonnie. Ma, Pamela. Ma beamed, then kissed Mom on the cheek she'd been pinching before. You laughed at their antics. You thought the moment was very sweet. You smiled to yourself at the sight. Ma looked back. Ma, you know. I'm also here to listen to you whenever you're ready. Ma, in fact, I think that talk might be needed sooner for you. Mom shook her head and elbowed Ma, but it was futile. Mom, meddler. You also elbowed her. You blushed Ma. I don't have some. Yeah, that's true. Ma giggled. Ma, there's no rush. Ma, okay. Don't think you have to stick with whatever you come up with right now. Mom nodded. Mom, the two of us are happy to hear you out, and we may be able to relate better than you think. She gave Ma the weakest scathing look possible while being unable to stop grinning. Thanks. Devin, I'll think about it.
Wonderful.
Ma, good. That's all we ask for. Mom let out another exaggerated sniffle. It didn't take a genius to realize it was fake. Mom, first Elizabeth and now you, Devin. Do you have to grow up? Ma, yes. Children tend to do that from time to time. Your parents quickly grew absorbed in their conversation about rearing kids. They let you go without problem. You couldn't even open your window, since it was hotter out. You dragged your feet as you crossed. You thought back to the conversation you'd had downstairs. After you were definitely growing, all right. When it came to your body, it was chubby, was slender, was heavy set, was getting some muscle definition now. What? You shifted to the side, your head still faced. At birth you were assigned female and at birth you were assigned male and your chest was only flat, your chest was flat, your chest was flat by birth, but your chest was flat by birth, but you aimed to have breasts through your chest was flat, but you thought about it being different. Your chest was only flat, and that, you ran a fingertip over. You took a step backwards, finished with your improv. You thought you looked fantastic. You didn't look too bad. You had no idea how to feel. You were simply neutral. You were self-conscious. You thought you looked fantastic. You didn't look too bad. You shook your head. You shuffled over to your bed. Time passed slowly. You weren't sure. Mom, Devin. Mom, there's a call for you. You perked up, Devin. Yeah, you got to your feet. You needed to go downstairs. Just. She glanced. Mom, well, here comes trouble. Ma clicked her. Ma, he. Mom, oh, I know. He's very sweet. Mom. Mom. Ma, yes, I think so. Devin helps Cove settle down. He would have gotten himself in even more trouble without him. Mom, you have a point. Ma just laughed. She blinked in surprise. Mom looked over, noticing you at the foot of the stairs as well. Mom, oh, I didn't expect you to come down already, Devin. You pretended you didn't over. You called Mom out on her. Devin, yeah. From the way Ma, MHM sure. Well, we'll just. You couldn't help but Mom, honestly, this lady. Your moms whispered amongst them. Now you were, and that was just fine with you. You took a seat at the kitchen counter and settled in. As expected, there was a knock on the door a few minutes later. When you got up and answered it, your neighbor was standing up. You greeted him as you typically did. With a low five, with a wave, with a nudge to the shoulder, with a nudgie, with a hug. He stiffened in your arms, then relaxed seconds after. Cove, hey. His voice was cracked as he struggled to. Devin, so, what's with the sudden visit? Cove, I don't want to do anything, not when it's like this. He gestured vaguely to the humid air hanging around. Cove, I thought I could at least do nothing with you. Cove, I thought I could at least do nothing with you.
Hold on. Head back to the other game.
You thought that was really sweet. How'd you know I was doing nothing? You nodded. I was You thought that. You nodded. I was thinking the exact same thing. His words were nice and expressed real fun. He shook his head. Cove, I haven't really felt like eating cause of the heat. You didn't eat at all. You should really eat properly. Yeah, I get like that You didn't eat at all? Then you gotta have something now. Great. You urged. Cove, okay. As one. Cove, I don't wanna eat anything that's warmed up. Devin. After a bit, with that settled, you had planned to decide on the outside layers. There was white bread, wheat bread. Cove, could you take the grain one for me? Devin, sure. You reached for the mixed grain. A lettuce wrap, white bread, sourdough, mixed grain, the pita pockets, gluten-free bread, cinnamon swirl bread, a lettuce wrap, mixed grains. Then you had to decide what main direction the sandwich would. You wanted to make a sweeter style of sandwich. You wanted to make a truly savory style of sandwich. Something savory would make it feel. As for the ham slices, cucumber, avocado, turkeys, tofu, peppers, hummus, pickles, egg salad, cheddar cheese, pepper jack, turkey slices, tofu, ham slice, avocado, mozzarella, tomatoes, ham slices, tofu, hummus, egg salad, lettuce, tofu, pickles, tofu, hummus, egg salad, red onions, ham slice, peppers, cheddar cheese, pepper jack, peppers, ham slice, tofu, egg salad, mozzarella, pepper jack, mozzarella, and then you pepper jack cheese, cheddar cheese, and then you moved on to for the finishing touch. Mustard, mayonnaise, pesto, hot sauce, salt, mayonnaise, ranch, salt, hot sauce, mustard. And you nodded to yourself with a quiet hum, satisfied. You focused it. Cove was putting his sandwich. There were open jars of peanut butter and so he was making a peanut butter. That sounded great. You didn't think much of that. It seemed weird. That maybe you'd have one yourself. Curiosity. By the time he gave it an Cove, done. Devin, yeah.
Cool.
Cove, cool. He waited as you quickly returned the ingredients and cleaned up. You and Cove took a seat on the ground. He immediately. Cove, this sandwich is really good. At least that's something. At this point, you sat down and started on your own sandwich. You nodded. You shrugged. You scrunched up your. You. Obviously, you were a pro at making sandwiches. He leaned back on his hands while Cove, wanna do something? It seemed the plan of not doing any. Yeah, like what? Maybe. Not really. He rolled his head back, looking up at the Cove. What about Hangman? You laughed at this. Yeah. You grudgingly humored it. You thought it was a nice idea. You put, as you laid it. Cove picked up one of the markers with his right hand, while keeping a half slice of. Cove, can I pick the phrase? Devin. Okay.
Oh,
I wanted to guess first anyway. He smiled, then he stopped, pursing his lips and you watched silently as you raised an eye. Finally, he put empty lines on the paper to say, Cove, all right. You can start guessing. You peered over. His secret phrase consisted of 3 words, the first 2 had 3 letters, and the last had 4.
L-O. Wait, love. L-O-V. Devin. Devin would be here. Love.
You thought hard about what. Enter one letter of the alphabet. Cove, no. After, Devin, I wonder if anyone turned off the TV. Cove. Devin, the TV. Devin. Cove smile. Cove, horse show. Devin, You squinted off into the Devin, I feel like it was some kind of crime-solving drama. Cove nodded sleepily. Cove, can you give any specifics? Devin, Well. You rested your chin. Devin, I remember there was a woman with long, blonde. Devin, there were scenes in. You lapsed into silence. Cove, I don't know what that is. Devin, me neither, and I just saw it. Enter one letter of the alphabet. Cove, you got one. Another round came and went, and Cove grumbled as he readjusted himself. Cove, I'll have to charge you rent then. You can be my new roomie if you want. Looks like we'll both be stuck here forever. No way. He smiled. Cove, that wouldn't be so bad. You couldn't help but smile too. Now that you thought about it, being roommates with Cove would be fun. Then you returned to the game. Enter one letter of the alphabet. Cove, that's a point for me. Cove spoke up once more, catching your attention. He was peering down at the piece of paper between you. Cove, you know, Hangman is kind of a creepy game. Maybe it's what they had instead of. I've always wondered about that. I'll have to look it up. The two of you. Enter one letter of the alphabet.
I can't think. L-O-V?
Cove, no, not that either. By this, Devin, should we go downstairs to Cove? I was thinking that too. Devin, me neither. You looked over at him. Devin, but hey, what happened to you not being able to get up ever again cause you were stuck to the floor? Cove, that's still true. I mean, we're not actually going, are we? You rolled your eyes and dropped the issue. Enter one letter of the alphabet.
Oh, I get it.
Cove, good guess.
Cove.
Enter one letter of the alphabet. Cove, you did that one already, Enter one letter of the alphabet. Cove, oh, I might win this. Enter one letter of the alphabet. Cove, only one leg left. Enter one letter of the alphabet. Cove, yep, that's right. Enter one letter of the alphabet. Cove, that's another one. Enter one letter of the alphabet. Cove, you're really close. Enter one letter of the alphabet. Cove, sorry, the little guy is all there and dead. You scowled. Cove, but I can still tell what you wanted. You looked up at him. The phrase was finally fully complete. You are cute. You stared. There was no mistaking what was written, clear as you. He had trouble me. Cove, it was all I could think. You covered your face. You gave him a playful you stayed where you were. You fell backward. You wrapped your arms around him. It was instinct. You didn't say no, you're cute. Cove smiled. A moment passed between. Things started. I really think you're cute. Cove's featured. Cove, thanks. Cove, I meant it too. Finally, he broke the eye contact. Cove, I've heard at some point you're supposed to start liking types of people, guys or girls. Cove, I haven't really noticed that yet. Nothing's changed. Not in a big way, not for everybody. Cove, maybe I have to grow up more. You waited, but you pouted. You shook off the strain. Devin, maybe you just don't like anybody. Cove seemed to but the Cove, okay, what about you? He winced and you considered. You were starting to have physical attraction, you only seemed to feel physical attraction. You didn't really have a physical, you didn't think you could tell if you had an interest in, there was only one person you'd ever. You were starting to have romantic attraction, but you weren't, you found them attractive. You found them attractive, you found them, and how you found them attractive, you found them, you weren't physically interested. For people, you weren't physically interested, you found them attractive, you weren't physically interested. You weren't interested in someone, you weren't interested in someone non-binary. You generally weren't interested in someone who's non-binary. You weren't physically interested, but you found them attractive. You explained how you felt to Cove. He listened then he scratched the back. Cove, I'm not really sure how we ended up talking about all this when we started out just playing hang. Cove, but I think so too. You shrugged. It was awkward. The conversation had a mind of its own. You just nodded quietly. Cove chuckled a Cove, so. Have you learned anything interesting recently, Devin? Oh. Yeah, I can't. The conversation took a lighter turn after. Fine. You pulled yourself off the floor. You glanced out your window briefly. Cove turned towards you, motioning towards your window. Cove, wanna go outside, Devin? Let's do it. The two of you, you stepped outside. This time of day, it was quiet outside. The flowers blew gently, you felt the breeze. I do too. You do. Your opinion sure has, I do. Cove smiled. Tendrils of his hair, a beat passed, but his gaze didn't stray from your own. His voice was impossibly soft when he spoke up again. You blushed at this. I feel the same. That's so nice of you. Your voice came out. Then Cove reached over and held your hand. Even as the sun disappeared the sun warmed your skin from its place in the sky and you closed your eyes, enjoying the mix of the heat with the pleasant breeze that drifted past you.
Hold on. Just do this one. Sit down. What? Food. Sorry guys, got food.
You and Lee had spread out a blanket on top of one of the hills behind your house, and had been relaxing there for a while now.
Be right back. I'll get some. Oh. And the lighter. The lighter. I'm back. Had to go get some glasses. A lot of bigger stuff. Okay. That's now we're back with the video. The cold and stuff. Hold on, before we continue.
Lee had come over earlier in the day, and while a range of activities had been discussed, a small spread was laid out in front of you. Some bottled water, soft drinks, as well as chips and sliced fruit.
Of course. Of course. Of course, that's the. Well, come on.
You sat up and reached for a snack, listening to Lee talk away about the musical she had gotten to see a few days ago. Lee, it was unbelievable. There was singing, dancing and crazy stunts, and it was, Lee, maybe one day we could go together.
Maybe.
I've gotta see more shows like that.
Maybe we could, cuz. The weirdest thing we always say is cuz.
Lee, you smiled at Lee's enthusiasm, knowing how much she enjoyed singing and performing. And she was good at it too. You had gotten the chance to hear her. You weren't. Devin, Save slot 6. Devon move. Save slot. You also like to sing. You also like to sing and had talent of your own. It was nice the two of you could share that interest. Lee, I wonder, if maybe we could put on our own show? Think of how fun it'd be. Lee, we could perform for our parents, and ask our friends and some other people to come and watch too. Yes, let's do it. You had actually thought about doing something like that before, but never had the chance to. Lee clapped in excitement and bounced on the balls of her feet, beyond happy that, Lee, I'm gonna sing. Do you want it to, or maybe do something else? I'll pick the outfit. I'll do some kind of stunt that goes to the music. I'll sing too. Lee, cool. Lee, is there anything else that's coming to your head? No. The two of you ran back to your house to grab the supplies you needed, dodging your mom's amused questions, before heading back out to the... Lee and you... Lee, oh, you know, we should have invited Cove to watch us. That's smart. Devin, we should ask him to... Lee, I really like him too. Yeah, he is a good person. Lee, I knew you would. Lee, but speaking of boys we like, what's the relationship status between you? Yeah, it's good. I don't know. You blushed and said nothing. Yeah, Lee, I'm so happy for you. Lee, but, like really, are you gonna be telling him you... I don't have a... I'll tell him soon. Lee, I hope so. You know you didn't say anything, wondering about the possibilities instead. The two of you talked a little more about Cove, amongst other topics. Finally, you both decided to pack everything up and head back home for the evening. Lee talked excitedly about the show as you did, and you thought, Upon walking through the front door, you were met by your mom's and Elizabeth Hub. Tension hung thick in the air as the... What? Your moms looked at each other, wondering which one of them was going to speak first. Mom, we're just having a talk with your sister. The room fell quiet. Elizabeth, you don't have to stop just cause those two are here. There, Elizabeth was mad. Ma, Elizabeth was asking about her parents. Mom, her biological ones. The world spun when you glanced at Lee. She shuffled her, your mom. It made sense that Elizabeth didn't know a lot about her biological. Elizabeth looked, Mom, we don't want to keep that information from either of you. It's your right to know your path. Elizabeth, well, it's happening now. Your Ma, I adopted you from the Philippines when you were just a baby. Elizabeth, wait. I wasn't born here. Ma, no, you weren't. You could clearly see that your sister was appalled by this information. Elizabeth, am I gonna have to pass some test to even be a citizen? Mom, no, you were adopted into the country. We took care of things, you're already a citizen. Ma, Elizabeth sighed. Elizabeth, who were my parents? Ma softly, Ma, I'm so sorry, sweetie. Your parents were reported to have died. Mom, Elizabeth was torn between Elizabeth, great. So I can never meet them, even if... Ma, I have to go. Mom, we should give her a little space to... Your ma's head hung low, but she stopped walking. With Elizabeth now gone, the two of them seemed to remember you and Lee were still standing. Mom, I'm sorry you had to see all that. Mom, but since it's the topic of the day, Devin, is there anything you'd like? Ma, you deserve to know. After all, Lee patted your back. I want to know. No, I don't want to. You couldn't even answer. I want. Your parents both nodded in sync. Lee, I can leave, if you wanna have. I want you to be here. Thanks, Lee, I can do that. Lee Ma, you were adopted as a baby, but 2 years after Elizabeth. We used a different organization that time, and you were adopted within the US. Mom, we're sorry to tell you, Mom, that's why we wanted to wait until you asked. We didn't want to Ma, we're sorry. Lee gave you a reassurance. Thank you for telling. Okay, you said no, it's not your fault. You were trying. Ma, thank you for listening. Mom, if there's anything else you want to know, Ma,
okay?
how are you feeling now? Lee watched you I feel fine. I feel fine. I feel fine. You held back the tear. Anger rose. You spoke with no one seemed to have any words after that. You went up to you needed to stay here with your moms. You wanted to get out of you wanted to see Elizabeth. You were worried. It would be, when it hurt. You wanted to see Cove, more than anything, your moms nodded in understanding, trusting you to make the best call for yourself. Once outside, after you raised a hand, Cove's dad, hi, Devin. Looking for Cove, I bet, Devin, yeah, that's right. Cliff turned and whistled down the hall in the direction of Cove's room. Cove's dad, hey, sport. You have a guest. After calling his son, he turned back to you and dipped his head. Cove's dad, he'll be here any second. As promised, it didn't take long before footsteps. He looked past his dad to see you standing there, and smiled. Please, Cove, hey, Devin. Devin, hi, Cove. He gave you a placid smile, one you were all too familiar with. Cove, sure. Cove's dad, you kids take care. Mr. Cove, what's up? There's a lot going on right now. It's nothing. You didn't speak to him. I needed to talk to you. I needed. Cove's forehead. Cove, well, Devin, my mom and dad who gave birth to, Cove, I'm sorry, his words. You don't have to do this. You started to, I'm okay. You took a step back. Cove, still, Devin, can we talk somewhere else? You felt uncomfortable huddling around the entrance of Cove's house. Cove, yeah. Cove, you had things. Cove, can you explain everything to me? You nodded soft. Cove sat quietly and listened attentively, nodding every now and then or taking in a sharp. It took a long time. Silence settled. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, drifting through the night towards you. Cove, I'm really sorry about what happened to your parents. So sorry. He stopped suddenly and I'm sad I feel bad that I don't feel worse about it. I'm just so mad. You shrugged your shoulders. I'm sad I'll never get to know them. Devin, I'll never find out what they're doing. Cove, I think that you can be as sad as you want, for as long as you need. Or you can feel okay about it whenever you want, to. He sighed and ran a hand through his hair as he looked out over the ocean. Cove, I guess what I'm trying to say is whatever you feel about it is how you feel about it. You don't. Thank you, Cove. His words had. Cove smiled at you a little, and you could tell he was trying to be comforting. Cove, and your moms definitely don't. It doesn't matter if you're not blood related, you're definitely family. I can, You stayed up on the hill together a little longer, looking out over the ocean, and the stars that shone brightly above it. After talking about the situation with someone who wasn't directly a part of it, you started to see things in a different light. Above all, you were glad to have Kobe's support, and to know you could count on him, if you needed it. Elizabeth, hey. The sudden voice of your sister behind you made you jump. She walked closer. Elizabeth, would you mind going? I want to talk to Justin. You, Kobe seemed equal part. You can't ask that. You nodded your head in agreement. I want to talk to you too. Elizabeth.
Really?
She made a, you waited and, Elizabeth folded her arm. Elizabeth, did moms tell you about your parents too? I don't want to talk about, my birth parents also died. I don't, my, Elizabeth,
Sorry.
Elizabeth, sorry. Devin, why did you want to talk to me? Devin, Elizabeth, Elizabeth, I didn't hear anything. Shutting, Devin, why did you stop doing that? Then, she shook, Elizabeth, I was worried about you. I was the one who brought it up, but I made you deal with whatever. She sighed, Elizabeth. That was pretty crappy of, I'm amazed you noticed that was, thank you for thinking of me. I'm not mad at you. You were quietly, she's, Devin, I'm okay, Elizabeth. It didn't upset me. Elizabeth, how are you allowed to be that mature? The lightning spirits in her were quickly, Elizabeth, you have to be born in the US to become president. Devin, what? You had, Elizabeth, I get I was never gonna be president, but, Elizabeth, I don't like having to know that when I was born, I was gonna have a completely different life. So different I can't even think about what it looked like in my head. Elizabeth, I could have spoken another language, lived away from everything I've ever seen here, had someone else as my sibling, Elizabeth, and then my, Elizabeth, I can't go back to what it was even if I wanted to. A heaviness settled between. I feel like that too. You knew exactly how she, I don't really understand, you knew exactly how she felt. It was a confusing feeling, to have lived one way, Elizabeth, when it was just me and mom's in the living room I just kind of, said it, finally. Elizabeth, learning about them, and what happened, doesn't change how I feel about our family, Devin. She smirked. Elizabeth, I'd already figured a long time ago that moms weren't our biological parents. That wasn't news. Technically, one of them could have been related to you. You kept listening to Devin, our moms can have kids, just not both together. Elizabeth, true, but I'm, Elizabeth, nice try, smart Alec. Elizabeth, nothing about the family I was first born in would have made me decide that this wasn't my family anymore. Elizabeth, if you had hoped you'd be free of my big sisterly status, don't think you're so lucky. She bumped her shoulder. Elizabeth, you'll always be my little brother. You smiled softly at her, you jokingly groaned at the prospect, you bumped her back. You'll always be my family too. I think I'm really lucky. You'll, chuckling, she seemed pleased with how the conversation had gone, in the end. Elizabeth, ready to head back, you gave her a nod. Elizabeth, come on. You walked. When you stepped through the door, you found your moms quietly sitting together at the kitchen table. Their heads, Ma, we're so glad. Ha, I'm sorry for walking away, everything is alright. Ma then. Mom, we really couldn't have asked for better kiddos. We love you. Ma, more than we could ever say. Elizabeth, Muum. You smiled at the, You were so glad your moms were alright. You're smush. You smiled at their comfort. You were so glad. Devin, I love you too. You let. They both. Lee, hey. I hope you're alright. Lee came up to Lee, and are you okay, Elizabeth?
Oh.
Elizabeth rolled her eyes and huffed a breath, and you knew she wasn't used to showing her vulnerable side. Elizabeth, I'm doing fine. Lee nodded. Mom, that sounds like an excellent idea. Lee, I love the sound of that. Cove, okay. Cove looked, Elizabeth, why not? You hid the smile that threatened to tilt your lips, and no matter what she could have said about it, and he was someone who was really important to you. Mom, who's got a suggestion? Ma, it should be something we can do here in the house. You suddenly remembered the show you and maybe we can do our show. Mom, a show. This is the first. Ma, it would be amazing if, Elizabeth, oh yeah, I need to see what you've cooked up. Cove, that'd be cool. You smile. Lee, take some seats and we'll. Your moms collected the while you listened through the song you had. When the two of you returned to the living room, the group you felt nervous you were pumped for the show. The time you and Lee had put into practicing was worth it. Lee, okay, so, welcome to our show. You stayed quiet, thank you for being here tonight. No refunds, you're gonna be really impressed. Thank you for your mom's, then you nodded at Lee that you were ready to. Lee took in a deep, you're part of this. When the performance was, everyone gave you a round of applause. Mom, Ma, you're Cove was the first one to approach. Cove, nice job. Lee, thank you. Cove, you're a really great singer, Devin. Thanks. I was pretty good. You blushed and said nothing. Luckily we had a crowd who's easily impressed. Thanks. Cove, welcome. Your parents gushed about how great everything was and thanked you for sharing it with them. You laughed it off. In that moment, you couldn't have been more. Sunlight shone through the windows. It'd been shaping up to be. You listened silently as he kept talking, his words stilted. Cove, so. I was just, wondering. Do you want to come over to my. The question came out, your eyes widened. Yeah. You kept listening. Cove, it was huh? Oh. It seemed that Cove, cool. Well. He stumbled for a bit, trying to gather his thoughts again. Cove, my mom and dad, they really want you to be there. You took a moment. Cove spoke. Cove, also, I want you to be there too.
Of course, Cove.
Cove, can you? Yeah, I can come. I'll have to ask my moms and. No, I can't. Why am I the only one invited? Yeah. Cove, thanks. He sounded noted. He spoke to you. And then. Soon. You knocked a couple times as you waited for an answer. It was exciting. You were apprehensive. The idea made you curious. You didn't think it would be as special. You couldn't say you were The idea it was You had thought today was going to be boring. You didn't. Kyra. Kyra, thanks so much for coming over.
Look at Kyra.
I know it was kind of Devin. Thank you for having Kyra, of course. Just make yourself at home. Cove's dad, hey, Devin. Welcome to our humble abode. You jerked your head toward Cove's dad. Hope you're hungry. True to his word, with Mr. Holden busy, and Cove nowhere to be seen. Kyra, he sure is. She nudged you with an elbow. Cove's dad, You're on vacation, Kyra. You need to accept that already. She yelled back, amused. Kyra, people still cook when they're on vacation. Kyra, it's not like I'm some celebrity who can go out for every Cove's dad. Well, in this house, you're a VIP. Kyra smiled and shook her head quiet. Kyra, sorry about that, Devin. Cove's dad, I don't butt in. She eyed him, chuckling in disbelief. Kyra leaned over to whisper to you. Kyra, it's okay. He likes to be included. Her next question continued to be said in a hush. Kyra, so, how are you doing? I'm doing good. Oh, things are okay. I'm not really sure. Kyra, that's what I like to hear. She opened her mouth to. You checked to see Cove emerge. He quickly took stock of this, his cheeks tinted pink at the sight of you standing in. Cove, Devin. You made it? Cove's voice was Devin. Hey. Cove frowned at your plate. Cove, weirdo. Devin. Yeah. Cause you're being all weird. He huffed. It was when you. Cove, are we having dinner now? Cove's dad, not yet. But, Cove, as he. Cove, you coming? The question was. Cove. Kyra, have fun. Cove's dad, we'll call you when. With. This was the first time you were invited. You had visited Cove's room before. Cove. There. The sensation was nothing new. Cove that's just, you had. Cove, you can sit wherever you. Cove, you sat down on the chair, you didn't sit anywhere, you sat next to. As soon as you sat next, he tried to hide a trembling smile. Cove, oh my god. He said it under his breath. As you were nervous about. You smiled comfortingly, you chuckled over it. You felt very charmed by you felt very charmed by his reaction. He raised his. You only shrugged back. It's nothing. You're like an open book. You're such a sweet guy. You're adorable. You're Cove. Clearly, Cove, I'm not. He gripped the blanket. Cove, did you see my fish? Cove threw. He was trying pretty poorly to change the topic. That much was clear. You started to watch. There were a bunch of them. Devin, how long have you had those fish? Cove, my dad bought them for me not very long after I moved here. Devin, wow. That's a long time. You peered. Most of them were small, but there was one especially big one. Devin, what are their name? Cove, I don't name them. You lifted an eye. Cove, mostly, I just call them things based on what they look like. Squirt for a small one, tangerine for a really orange one. That sort of thing. Cove, I've had a lot of fish and I'm not that good at coming up with names. You found that funny. You found that surprising. You found that relatable. You found that surprising. After all the. Cove, oh. A couple of them have other types of name. He pointed to. Cove, my dad named her Dreamcatcher. And that other one's Mark. Cove smiled. Devin, you let other people name your fish. Cove, nice. Yeah. It's nice. He then turned to you. Cove, do you want a name? Yeah. Can I? Yeah. Can I? His smiled. Cove, sure. Cove. He pointed. The first was the smallest fish in the second, the last fish was the biggest. You went with the smallest fish. Cove, you watched the fish you chose. Frank. Cove. Cove laughed Cove, what? You can't name it after me, Devin. Why not? Cove, cause I'm not gonna call my fish that. Devin, but you still said I could pick it. Cove shook his head. Cove, I'll call them Junior then. You can still. It seemed like. Cove, alright, it's Cove. With that, his attention moved from you to the tank. You smiled proudly at. You noticed then that Cove was sitting close, this close. Your shoulders were almost brushing. Devin, you know, I'm not allowed to have pets in my house. The corners of. Cove, that doesn't sound fair. Cove, it's not like fish would make a mess of. right? I don't mind it too much. I get it. Right? Devin. They don't want to worry about more lives than the two they're all, Devin. One time, Lizzie Elizabeth came back from playing at the beach and just shut herself in her room. Devin. She only came down for food, and then she ran back upstairs straight after. Devin. But then that night, Ma went to her room to say goodnight and started screaming. Devin. Mom and I ran over to see what happened. Lizzie had this huge lizard in her arms. Cove's eyebrow. Cove, a lizard? Devin. Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. Devin. She hid the lizard in her room for most of the day. Devin. Mom and Ma were not happy. Devin. Lizzie was really upset. Devin. When she did get over it, it was almost like it never happened. You laugh. Cove had been quiet for most. Cove. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to have a sibling. You gave It's fun. There are ups and downs. You're lucky to be an only It's a nice idea in general. I don't know how to explain it. Devin. Cove. Cove. He didn't have. They were absolutely the best. You got along with your moms. You thought your moms were you found. They were well, the thought, you doubt. You didn't tell him. You didn't tell him. You didn't tell him. You didn't tell him. You decided to tell him. You took. Cove. I have something important to tell you. Cove's head. Cove. What is it? You stared into his bright ocean eyes. You chickened out. You told. Devin. Devin. Cove sat still. Then, for a moment, your senses quickly. Devin. Cove. There was no You could, he might not have been facing you, but you didn't need to see. His parents were near.
Huh?
Kyra. Cove's dad, are you that famished? You were able, the parent. Cove took one more step forward and glared up at his. Cove, you paid Devin to be friends with me. Mr. Holt.
Seriously?
Cove. Mr. Cove just stood there. You felt so bad. You felt so bad for. You felt so bad for Kyra. That immediately, Cove's dad. Kyra. Cove, I can stay with Devin. You immediately followed after. You just stood there. Could you stop for a sec? Are you okay? You followed quietly. You might. At least he Are you? Cove. Devin. Are you mad at me? To your sir. Cove. What? No. Cove.
Okay.
I wish I'd known before. Cove. You're his Cove. And we're actually friends. Cove. It doesn't matter if you took it or not. You not, Devin. Of course we're friends. Cove seemed. Cove. Yeah. We are. Cove. I should thank you for not letting him get to you. Cove. He's always like that. Cove through. Cove. Cove. Who knows what other things he's done that I've never heard. He paused to take. You continued to listen. I'm sorry you have to deal. You're right. That's terrible. It could be worse. Even if it didn't go well, your dad's only trying to make you happy. His eyes Cove. You're right. Cove. The worst part is. Cove. I know he doesn't do stuff for himself. Cove blinked. Cove. But he just makes everything worse and then. Cove. And. Devin. What things? Cove. Cove. What if? What he did made you stay away from. His voice cracked as he forced. Cove was up. You stepped forward. You hugged him. You smiled reassuringly. You wiped. Cove readily. I'm really glad we got to be friends. Please don't cry. Hey, don't worry about it. You didn't need to say anything. I wouldn't have let anything your dad or anyone else did mess things up. His feature. You remain. Then he's. Cove. He's like that with my mom. The anger. Cove. Dad wants to make people happy, but he doesn't. The word. You'd never known. I'm really sorry. You don't actually mean what you're. Do you hate your dad? I'm here for you. You felt bad that things were so hard for Cove and his dad. You didn't say anything. You don't act. Cove as the What about your fish? I remember that day, when it happened. You, Devin. Cove's eyes, it was he must be. Your dad still needs to stop being so forceful. You might feel better than you do if you tried to make up with your dad. Cove frowned. Cove, I'm going back home. His face was set in determination. Cove,
Sorry.
thanks, Devin. I'm sorry about all this. Can I come with you? Cove, yeah. You smiled, Devin. Just checking. Cove nodded and headed out. What? He didn't pause. Cove, they snapped. Cove's dad. Kyra got out of her chair. Kyra. Cove, I wanted to talk to you. His parents. You were glad you could be here for him. You suddenly felt like you shouldn't be there. You stared back. It must have. Cove then fully. Cove's dad. I am so. Cove, it's okay. Cove's dad, it really isn't. Cove, Cove, then, it isn't. Cove's dad, Cove. Kyra placed. Kyra, your dad doesn't believe. Cove, I know why dad did it. He wanted me to be happy, that's all. Kyra sighed. Kyra, you're very grown up. Cove. Mr. Holden brought his hands up. He turned back. Cove's dad, I'm not going to do it again. Kyra, haven't tried to bribe more people. Cove's dad, both. He let out a heavy. Cove's dad, I don't know. Cove's when he's. Cove, you invited mom here. His dad, Cove, you didn't ask me if I wanted. Mr. Cove's dad, at least Cove's. It was quiet. You looked to Cove. Cove glanced down at Cove. I'm not angry anymore. Slowly, Cove, I can try to talk to you about things, and what I feel about stuff. Cove, I stopped saying that to you, since everything happened. I didn't want to talk to you. Mr. Holt, Cove's dad, my child shouldn't have to take. Cove's dad, after. Cove's dad, Cove, Kyra, Kyra, but, I don't think Cove wants to take care of you, he just wants to understand. It was still, when he looked, he got, Mr. Cove's dad, Bud, you and I are going to talk about every Cove's dad, he shook Cove, no. I don't want that. Mr. Holden began to smile too. Cove's dad, I'm afraid it's the only way. Kyra chuckled. Cove's dad, you better not be thinking you can get away from this. Kyra, you can't. He let go of Cove with one hand while, Cove's dad, oh, yes, I can. He continued. Then, father and son were standing in front. Cove's dad, if you think the ideas that I actually go with are bad, you two are going to be amazed by the thought. Kyra joking. Cove, thanks. Cove's
So
dad,
bad.
thank you, son. Cove's dad, but, hey, you know what I'm thinking now. Cove, Kyra, God no. Mr. Holt, Cove's dad, I'm thinking we should eat that dinner I paid. Kyra's side, Kyra, that we can manage. Right, Cove, yeah. Cove's dad, great. Cove's dad, though, I don't even know how I'm going to start making this up to Devin. Cove's dad, plus, Devin, I'm sure you'll come up with something. Cove's dad, well, we, will work on it, Devin, okay. Cove ducked his head and spoke towards you. Cove, do you want to stay for dinner, Devin? You bet. I would. Mr. Holden finally let go of his family. Kyra, you're very good boys. Cove shyly rubbed his arm, while Mr. Holden, Cove's
One more. I'm trying to get to the next so we can do the next 3 because it'll be over by then.
Usually you wouldn't be up so early,
So
especially
we can go
during
to
summer
4,
vacation, but today was
episode 4,
different.
this is episode 3. This is where we finish this chapter, part of the story chapter. And then episode 4 will be the third season. Third because this is only on day 3. It's a Saturday. Sunday will be like third season of the of the week in this story, so that's all I'm saying.
Today, instead of the lazy date, because parked in the street, just outside your house, was a massive RV camper, so big you couldn't even, you glanced at the prospect, especially now that, you weren't sure how exactly, the parents all thought it was, you had already gotten a good look inside. Mom bustled past with a cooler in one hand. Ma, I'm going to need a whole jug of coffee once we hit the road. You could relate to Ma. Personally, you were as raring to go as you felt like you were a middle ground. You. And then, at the end of the chain, came your sister. Elizabeth, I don't get why I can't sleep in the bed. Ma, we're trying to make things fair on everyone. The trip, there was, your mom, the adults determined. You were fine with the arrangement. You thought it was unfair that Cove had to sleep on the floor. You weren't too happy. You offered to sleep somewhere else. You suggested sharing the loft. Mom, no. That loft is too tiny for two. Mom, the three of you. Mom, all right, you lot. Does everyone have everything they need? At the mock. You weren't sure about that. You were confident you had it all. You weren't sure. Oh. You had to run back inside for something. You just gave her a flat look. Your Ma, got everything now, Devin. Yeah. With you all. A bag of makeup, a portable gaming console, pencils and paper, your favorite stuff, your camera, an MP3, a couple of things to read, your favorite stuffed animal, pencils and paper, a portable, a bag of makeup, a couple of things to read. You knew your camera, a ball, a bag of your favorite stuffed animal. It was like Kyra, hey, let me take that for you. Kyra, Elizabeth skipped towards the RV.
Damn, we got.
You were excited. You were curious about the RV. You were eager to get to the deck. And it did. It was there was the Cliff groaned as he headed towards the rest of you. Cove's dad. Kyra, yeah, Cliff. Cove, Elizabeth, are you going to be driving again? Elizabeth called down from, she was laying on. Kyra, lucky for all of us we have enough adults to cover the shifts today. You stayed quiet, you shook your head at the ribbing. Phew. That's a relief. Just enough time to write up my last will and test. We shouldn't gang up on the poor guy. It's not his driving I'm worried about. We shouldn't gang up on Cove's dad, the rest of the Mom, what I'm more worried about is this old monster getting us there and back again Mom. Kyra, that's just the aesthetic of the decor. Kyra, Cove, did you ask what year the model was before you? Kyra wrinkled. Kyra, yes, I did. Cliff chuckled. You felt when you took a handful. You refused the offer. You happily. Ma, you had all, giving a look across the front. Kyra herself was the only one up there who was still awake. It was a queen. Mom.
That's fantastic.
Mom, you stayed. You had an okay sleep. You had slept well. You had slept terribly. You knew you wouldn't be Cove had his head tilted up towards the canopy of trees. You knew that the redwood trees here were considered the tallest trees on earth. Kyra, smile. You spun just. Your parents, Ma listened you smiled at them, Elizabeth teased. You were in awe of the redwood, you were fascinated by the sensation, you were in a good mood. You weren't as impressed as, you were embarrassed, you were fat, you were in a good mood. You were fascinated by the sensations surrounding you. You strained your... The adults had decided on some casual nature walk. Elizabeth, I can't believe our families are actually on vacation to... She threw her arm. Elizabeth, I would have joked about something like this happening, but now I'm not sure I want to give them any more ideas. Cove smiled. Elizabeth, just watch, next year they'll be talking about their next new, amazing idea. She put on a... Elizabeth, it was clear that Elizabeth, maybe one day we will be related, legally anyway. She said it as though she was a gossipy, but she almost immediately dropped the tone and nonchalantly. Elizabeth, at least, that's what Ma thinks.
Huh? Bye. You go there. You go there, please. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. I'm back.
Still blushed,
Had to mess with my
which
dog.
made Elizabeth smile triumphantly.
Hi guys, I'm back. I
as
had to
though
mess
that
with
was
my
her
dog.
whole purpose for Then he mumbled quietly, refusing to make eye contact. Cove, I don't know why you think you're so funny when no one else does. Cove, you told her to cut it out. Cove has a point. I'll marry you, Cove. He looked at you in Divin. I expect you to give me an answer sooner or later. Cove frowned. Elizabeth, oh. He isn't going to engage with this topic. He groaned at the day continued. You passed up. There was a little. Various birds flew by overhead. You even managed. You were glad you got to do this. You were disappointed to only have one day. You thought you had more fun hanging out. You hadn't had a good. You smiled to. Everyone had enjoyed different parts of it. It was nice to have the space to yourselves. You headed up to the loft to relax on your own. You hung out. Your cheeks warmed a little at that. You'd seen Cove nearly every day for the past 5 years, but seeing him in a jacket, it was in fact, when Cove cleared his throat, Cove, is everything okay? You averted your gaze. Yeah, don't worry about, you just look so good right now. Yeah. Everything is really good. You nodded. Cove immediately. Cove, what? He didn't say, Devin. You know, I hardly ever see you wearing a jacket. Cove, oh. Yeah. I like wearing as few layers as possible. Cove, I'd rather be cold than extra hot. I'm the same way. I don't mind either way. I love wearing layers. I'm the Devin. They're bulky and heavy. Cove smiled light. Cove, I've noticed. You perked up hearing. You changed the sub. You asked him what he liked to see others wear. You changed the sub. Cove's eyes. Cove, nothing. That was funny. You paid it no mind. That was a Cove. Come on, that's not what I meant. You composed. Devin, answer with what you do mean then. Cove. It was a topic that made him uncomfortable. You had a little fun and that it. You're not very good at these I swear I won't make fun of you. Cove, that's not really it. Cove seemed. Devin, please. Cove sighed. Cove, I don't know. You made it. Devin, are you sure? Cove, fine. I guess. Devin, ankle bracelets? Cove, yeah, everyone can wear a pretty bracelet. Cove, it's more special, or something. Cove brushed his knuckles again. Thanks for answering, I like them too. Cove smiled at you, when he said nothing else, you took a moment to gather your own thoughts. You had to get an anklet on ASAP, maybe you'd wear your anklets more now. Maybe you wouldn't wear your anklet, you thought about buying an anklet of your, you had, maybe you wouldn't wear your anklet, maybe you'd wear your anklets more. You had a, Cove looked away again, you gave him an you were surprised to, Devin, Cove. Still he wouldn't look at you, you waited for it silently, until finally, Cove, people having purple eyes, that's also something I like. Devin, huh. For a moment you were, Cove faced you head up, you got the distinct was he, trying to flirt with you? Cove, what do you like for another person? Muscles, pretty hair, glasses, blue eyes, everything about you. Cove, ah. Cove went still. And now you were both flirting with he placed his, with that the parents all arrived soon after, each of them climbing into the, Elizabeth. You spent the evening chatting and playing a few games. Bedtime, she explained that Cliff was going to start driving early in the morning, now was the time to check you hadn't left any, you, as well as everyone else, were confident you had it all packed up in your mom's and Elizabeth's. Cove, you tried to get comfort. It was hard to believe that the trip was practically over. You enjoyed this mini adventure. You thought the trip had been you felt the trip was a waste of time. You hadn't had a good time. All in the minutes ticked by. You wondered if Cove was still awake, looking down the hall. He must have felt you watching him. You grinned back at him. You made a silly face. You waved at him. Cove shrugged in his bed while still smiling, or at least. You then gestured for him to come over. Cove looked unsure about it, but you were happy to see his sleeping bag. Eventually. Cove, what? Oh, it was, good night. How are you doing? You invited him up to the loft. Devin, do you want to come up? His eyes widened. Cove glanced behind. Cove, okay. You broke, even if you weren't exactly tall, the loft was still a tight squeeze with the two of you in. You laid down next to one of his arms was nested. Cove, so,
yeah, let's take a screenshot.
Cove, so, what am I doing here?
The fireworks? I gotta save this for the screenshot, the thumbnail, okay? Okay.
I don't know, I thought we could hang out. You can sleep here instead of the... Cove's eye. Cove, I'm not sure about this. Cove swallowed. You were feeling the nervousness too. You felt comfortable being so close to him. It seemed natural. You thought. You lay there silently. You tried to ease things with conversation. You nudged closer to him. You inched towards. Cove's face flushed dark enough. Devin, are you okay?
Yeah.
Cove, I'm fine. Cove's eyebrows bent up nervously. He followed your lead and there was neither of you spoke a word. He opened his mouth to say something. You went to sleep. You moved back again. You snuggled against him. You closed the Coves. He gave you an apologetic look. After a few more moments, he settled in. He rested a cheek against the top. You could feel his lip curved into it. The two of you fell asleep before long. When you woke up the next morning, you noticed quickly that you weren't as warm. Blinking sleepily, you peeked over the edge. However, your movement gave you. She simply smiled amusedly at you. You knew it was gonna be along. Soon your moms and Elizabeth emerged from their. You spent most of the. Kyra suggested a few different travel games she used to play. A little later in the day, it was a bit too much. When the RV finally pulled, everyone else must have been feeling the same, because it was mutually agreed that unpacking and cleaning the RV would wait. Once home again, you went straight up to your room. It felt weird to be alone. You missed being near. But with those.
Hold on. I'm a load save here.
Devin move. Save. Devin move.
Look at you, Cove now. Look at Cove now. Alright, guys, this will be the end of part 3 for Cove and Devin. So, bye. I'll see you in the next episode. That'll be next. And bye. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification to be notified for every video I do. I do these type of videos Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and sometimes Monday. It depends on my mood.